start now, Jyoti?
Yes, sir, I'm just starting. Yeah. So welcome everyone to the webinar on use water management for India.
Start the recording also.
Hello, yes, sir.
Start the recording also.
So Kanya, can you please start the recording? So Kanya?
Jyoti, I won't be able to start because you have to add me as co-host.
Okay. Okay. So welcome everyone to the webinar on use water management for India, challenges and opportunities. This webinar is being organized under CSE NMCG program of duration of 3 years for making Ganga basin cities water sensitive. Today we have with us as keynote speaker G. Ashok Kumar Ji, Director General NMCG, and we have 3 eminent speakers, Dr. V.K. Chaurasia, Joint Advisor CPHEEO, Mr. S. Vishwanath, Director Advisor of Biome Environmental Solutions, Mr. P.G. Ganapati, Senior Advisor of CDD India, and today's webinar will be moderated by our Director of Programs, Mr. Deepinder Singh Kapoor. So this will be our today's agenda of the webinar. A keynote address will be delivered by say G. Ashok Kumar, Director General NMCG. Then Mr. V.K. Chaurasia will be talking about potential and priorities of use water management in various national missions and schemes. Then P.G. Ganapati will explain us about the how you can manage use water in drains. And then S. Vishwanath from Biome Environmental Trust will be talking about UWM in Metropolis, centralized and decentralized systems, some experiences from Bengaluru, Karnataka. Then we will have a question and answer session at the end of the webinar. So about the registration statistics, we have a very exciting numbers. We have 650 plus registrations from 256 cities of India and some neighboring countries. We have 71% of male and 29% of female participants. Professional wise, we have different and diverse professional background people like ecologists, engineers, architects, agriculturists, lawyers, social scientists, etc. So organizational view, if we see people are from donors, international, national NGOs, civil societies, from academic background as well. People are from government, academic research institute, and private organizational consultancies. Before proceeding further, I would like to take you through some housekeeping rules we are set for this webinar. As you all know, this webinar is being conducted on webinar mode, and we will have a question and answer session at the end of the webinar. So I would request everyone to keep your mic on mute unless until and unless you are asked to speak. If you have any query or question, you can raise your hand and put up your question in the question and answer section. So each speaker will have 15 and 20 minutes for their session, and keynote address will be delivered by DG NMCG, which will be around 5 to 10 minutes. And this webinar is being recorded, so you will be provided with the recording after the webinar. And also we will put bio CV of the speakers in the chat box, so you can go through that. So today's webinar will be moderated by Deepinder Singh Kapoor. He is a director of water program at CSE. He is a very experienced water and development sector expert, and previously worked with various national governments, with international and national development agencies like NIUA, WaterAid, CARE, Oxfam, WSSCC, SPWD, AKRCP, etc. He has very strong background of research and advocacy. So now I would like to hand over this webinar to our today's moderator, Mr. Deepinder Singh Kapoor. So over to you, sir.
Thank you, Jyoti, and a warm welcome today morning to all the participants of the webinar, which are nearly 200 now, and also to Chaurasia ji and G. Ashok Kumar, Vishwanath, and Ganapati, who have joined us. Can you move the slides, please?
Yeah, sure, sir.
So this is a brief introduction about why we are doing this program and, what are we doing in this? And also a brief introduction about the NMCG and CSC NMCG collaboration. So there is a CSC NMCG collaboration focused on Ganga cities, and where we are doing capacity building work for cities essentially on the aspects of water. So while we all know NMCG's focus is on wastewater, but this CSC NMCG 3-year collaboration is focused on addressing the water side of the cities. So in a way, it is a unique collaboration in which CSC is supporting capacity building programs on water related issues, and with the aim of improving the river health flow. Please keep moving. Next. So it's a 3-year program, and this is the kind of activities, 24 trainings. We have practitioners guides, which we are developing on water related themes. And some of them will be out by this year financial end. Next, please. So when we are talking of a water sensitive urban design and planning, this is a kind of approach which we follow of water sensitive planning across various levels, from individual scale to neighborhood scale to city scale, and one can also go to the regional scale. So CSC is preparing a water sensitive cities framework, which we feel is more appropriate for global south level, and how we will be preparing and sharing that shortly with you. Next, please. So some of the work which has already been done under our collaboration with NMCG are 4 trainings, online trainings, 3 residential trainings, and exposure visits. And we have also a report which we have published on the UP stormwater harvesting in parks and open water bodies. More than 1,600 officials have been trained. Next, please. So these are some of the activities which are planned now and which have been completed out of the 4. And here you can see that the entire focus is on water related issues, whether it is groundwater management or whether it is water sensitive urban design and planning, water bodies management, decent EWATs, and water efficiency. Next, please. So this is what is tick marked has already been done. So we have 2 upcoming training programs, which are also, these are residential, these are for NMCG, and these are on these 2 topics on DWATs and urban groundwater management. And we have a water conclave, water and sanitation conclave in the first week of March. Next, please. So let's discuss this topic. What is used water management? And we know this scenario of the wastewater treatment, which is a CPCB scenario, Central Pollution Control Board, tells us that only about 30% of our sewage is actually treated. And even if you look at Delhi and Mumbai, it is close to 40%. And this, I think, is about a 2018 report. So partial treatment leads to pollution of rivers. And that is one of the mandate of this CSC NMCG training. Next, please. So if you see the scenario of Uttar Pradesh also, because CSC has a program in Uttar Pradesh, and this is the kind of scenario of Uttar Pradesh where there are about actually 780 cities. What we have data is based on the census, so which says about 735 cities. And the sewage is only in about 40 cities. So where does all the wastewater go and what happens to it? So it is quite obvious that, there's a lot of wastewater generation. If you look at 135 LPCD as the norm for urban India, Then about 100 LPCD is wastewater, which is partially grey water, partially sewage. But actually, in the cities which don't have a sewerage system and STPs, then the entire 100 LPCD becomes a wastewater. Next, please. Next slide. So this is the kind of sewerage and STPs generation in Uttar Pradesh. So only about 25% of the sewage treatment capacity complying to CPCB discharge standards. So the standards are met only for about 2000 MLD as against the 8000 MLD which is generated. Now, mind you, this is the water supply and the sewage generation. In all our cities, including Delhi or Bangalore, there's a lot of groundwater which is used. So actual wastewater generation will be much more than what is computed from supply and sewage generation. Next, please. So in Uttar Pradesh, this is the kind of a scenario. Why we are presenting Uttar Pradesh is because not that it's the only state, but there is Bihar, Uttarakhand, West Bengal, which are all NMCG states. But we are presenting one where we have a little more data. So this kind of shows what is happening in Uttar Pradesh, where about 59 towns have come up with the wastewater treatment systems in the recent years on FSTPs and co-treatment. Next, please. So when we are talking of the framework of urban used water management, this is a kind of framework which we developed at CSC to look at used water management. I'm sure Chaurasia ji, Ganpati and Vishwanath will certainly know more and add more to this framework. But if we are looking at a framework of understanding, then we are looking at first an assessment of the characteristics of wastewater and the quantities of wastewater. So the first one diagram you see in the blue is assessment of the characteristics of wastewater, which is domestic wastewater and domestic plus industrial wastewater. We are talking of, water which is flowing in our nalas and streams, which we are calling as used water. So we are seeing it as two types. One emerging from the domestic sources and one which is emerging from domestic as well as open sources, could be industrial, agriculture, whatever. So there in the domestic wastewater system, we have treatment systems of sewerage, of IND-based STPs, which Chaurasia ji is now promoting under SBM. And we also have an FSTP and decentralized wastewater treatment systems. So there are these three treatment systems for wastewater, which is emerging from domestic sources. And what is not emerging, which is a mix of domestic and industrial, the preferred solution there is a effluent treatment plant or a central effluent treatment plant. Then if we look at the possibilities of interception and diversion-based treatment systems of STPs and co-treatment, there are certain factors which we have presented here in the framework, which are: first is land availability, second is the nala flow, third is the kind of funds availability, and of course electricity connection is not that important, therefore we have kept it as the last one. But the first itself in the assessment is what is the kind of flow? Is the topography and the flow adequate enough? So for example, if the land availability criteria is met, then of course you can go for IND and STP. But if there is no land availability near the nala, or if it's a very long IND trench which you have, a sewer which you have to build, then you should look at some treatment which is in situ, as well as look at some FSTP and DWATs. Similarly, if the nala flow in certain states of India, if there is perennial nala flow is not there, and it's not one nala, if there are about 5 nalas or 10 nalas in a town, then how many nalas and what percentage of the nala are you treating? So if you can treat a significant amount of wastewater flow in the nala, then go for IND and STP plus co-treatment. If you can't tap in the majority IND flow, then look at some other in situ treatment or FSTP and DWATs. Similarly, funds and the capacity issues. So today, after the webinar, we will be discussing, after the presentations are made, we would be opening it up to the participants, and we would also request Rasya ji to stay on and answer some of the questions or respond to any comments, and also the other speakers. Next, please. So these are just introductory slides about NMCG and CSC. I will not spend too much time, but since we are obliged to, and we are having this webinar together with NMCG, we are presenting some of their work, which is a very ambitious program. You can see it spreads over these 5 states and the kind of cities it covers. Next, please. And these are the kind of massive programs and projects which it has. It has covers not just sewerage infrastructure, but rural sanitation, industrial pollution abatements, ghats and cremations, river surface cleaning, biodiversity, afforestation, public participation. Next, please. So these are the kind of up-to-date status where we have just shared the numbers of their projects under implementation, what are completed, under tendering, under approvals, administrative and executive approval, and the kind of modular STPs which are decentralized, which have been done. So again, some of the key challenges concluding from this is that Ganga Basin has so many, about 2,000 statutory towns. And mind you, this is 2011 census. And the latest census may add a significant number of towns in these 5 states. Urban built-up area has increased significantly. Then there is a widening of water demand. And this water demand is coming primarily from agriculture, but is also from other sources, leading to this issue of several parts of the river Ganga, not several, at least some, are becoming dry. And there is also an issue of overexploited aquifers. Urban lakes and water body ponds are deteriorating and being encroached. So that is also an issue. And of course, this issue of inadequate sewage treatment, both of infrastructure as well as operations and managements of existing plants. Next, please. So briefly about CSC, if we see one slide before, I think you missed one. Okay, fine. So if you see the CSC water program, this is how it is. We have a rural program, we have an urban water program, and we have a laboratory which deals with fecal sludge management and water quality treatment. So CSC has this kind of a background. It was started in 1980 and has been awarded with the Stockholm Water Prize and has been a center of excellence and with various government programs and missions. And we have 3 teams, which is an urban team, a rural team, and a lab team. Next, please. And our focus is on action research and policy and then programming. So CSC does not implement projects. We don't give funding to any other organizations. We believe that we fill that critical gap between knowledge and practice. And these are some of the, the profile of CSC work. So water, wastewater sanitation is just one of them. There is air pollution, climate change, industry, food systems. So we have various other programs and missions in which water and wastewater is one. Plus, as I said, we have a training lab, we have an education program. And the biggest program at CSC is the outreach through communications and our down to earth. So the down to earth is the major vehicle of CSC, reaching, I would say, millions of people, not just in India, but also abroad in Africa, in South Asia. So our down to earth carries a lot of, not just in articles, but it also has a blog. And we invite everyone, including the participants in this webinar, to write on the CSC's blog and contribute to the knowledge and advocacy. Next, please. I will not go into detail, but just to say that we have a water sensitive and climate cities program. We have a state and
Sir, sorry to interrupt. DG sir is ready to
Okay.
deliver the session. So can
Fine.
we make it a little faster?
No, I can just end here because we are just reaching the last part about the CSC program. We've already gone through these are some of our publications, which just shows that CSC has worked on issues both rural and urban, and from rural we have reached the urban. Okay, Jyoti, you can connect.
Yes, sir. So we have with us as a keynote speaker Sri G. Ashok Kumar ji, IAS Director General NMCG. So I would like to take this opportunity to introduce him first. G. Ashok Kumar ji is the Director General of NMCG under the Ministry of Jal Shakti. He belongs to the Indian Administrative Services Telangana cadre 1991 batch. In the past, he has held several important positions such as Joint Secretary in the Ministry of Civil Aviation, Government of India, and Director in the Ministry of Power. In the past, he has also served as the Executive Director Projects in NMCG. He has worked extensively in the water sector. Before joining NMCG, he served as the Mission Director for NWM, where his inspiring work in Jal Shakti Abhiyan Catch the Rain campaign led to the sanction of over 9.5 lakh water conservation and rainwater harvesting structures all over India. This resulted in him receiving the popular moniker, the Rain Man of India. He has also spearheaded several innovative initiatives such as the monthly water talks and water tech talks, preparation of water budget for all states, water audit of various industrial sector units and irrigation projects to improve the water use efficiency, etc. So now I would like to invite our keynote speaker, DG sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you and good morning, everybody. Unfortunately, I'll have to leave, attend the meeting with the minister at 11:45. So I'll very brief. Good morning to everybody who participates in this program. I was very happy to see all the initiatives of Center for Science and Environment and NMCG started in last 2 years, was very clearly enumerated by Sri Deependra Singh ji. Many of you are aware of the Namami Gange program, and this Namami Gange is a flagship program of Government of India, particularly looking at the cleaning of the river Ganga and its tributaries, and it has achieved a lot of milestones from the initial phase of creating more and more STPs and sewage treatment plants, and also building network for bringing in STPs, sewage from houses to the STPs. It has now moved on beyond the STPs because the almost 176 sewage treatment programs have been sanctioned by the cost about 24,000 crore rupees out of the 32,000 crore rupees project sanctioned so far by Namami Gange, and it has really made a lot of impact. The main stem of river Ganga is now very clean, except for 2 stretches, which is actually slightly above the permissible level of 3 milligrams BOD per liter of DOD. Otherwise, most of the stretches in the main stem has become very good, and now the focus is now getting shifted onto these tributaries. Now, apart from this, we are now taken up a lot of other activities for the River People Connect, and Earth Ganga is one of them. In this Earth Ganga, there are 6 pillars, and one of the most important pillars is the monetization of wastewater and the monetization of slush. So I would not call this as a monetization of wastewater; it's a monetization of the reused water, because nothing is waste, and we feel that the treated water which is coming out of our STPs are very good quality, and it is as per the standards laid by the NGT itself. The latest standard rated by NGT, and the water quality is being monitored by many institutions like CPCB and other organizations, and all of them have confirmed that the water table has water quality has improved. And more than that, the number of biodiversity increase in the biodiversity on the Ganga basin is been acknowledged and notified. The sightings of dolphins have increased. The sightings of other aquatic mammals have increased. The number of fishes in the water in the Ganga has increased. These are all bear a testimony to the increased or improved water quality. And another good example is the successful Kumbh, which happened last year, when 2019 Kumbh, we had almost 20 crore people taking bath in the river. So and the biggest testimony is coming to us in the next couple of weeks. In the United Nations Environment Program, UNEP and FAO is announcing the Namami Gange as one of the 10 flagship programs of the flagship restoration programs of the world in the COP15, which is going to take place in Montreal on 13th of December 2022. This is indeed a major recognition, because the UN is celebrating UN Decade of Ecological Restoration now from 2021 to 30, and they have taken up survey of over 150 similar projects all over the world, and from that, Namami Gange has been selected as one of the 10 top flagship programs. It's indeed a great big testimony to us. Now, confining to the topic of sewage treatment and the wastewater part, some of the models which was introduced by Namami Gange in the sewage sector, the hybrid annuity model and the one city, one operator model has come out very successful. In fact, World Bank is now touting this as one of the very successful interventions in all their member countries. They're also pushing this concept very forward. So the ham model, in which the concessionaire is asked to construct as well as maintain it for 15 years, is a service provide model rather than the construction model, where the person who constructed do not have the responsibility of operating it. So this ham model has helped us in preventing time and cost overrun, and also ensure that the sustainability of the program. And moreover, it also helped us in spreading the resources for stretching the resources, because only 40% of the cost or capital cost is paid upfront, and the remaining cost is spread over the 15 years. This also helped us in increasing the number of projects which can be taken up, and also the most important is the sustenance and continuation of this project. The 161 operator is another unique model, where the normal practice of shifting blames for any untreated water coming to the river used to happen between various STPs in the city, with one person or one agency responsible for maintaining the entire STPs in a city. This blame game also has stopped. This has improved the quality of water flowing out of the city. That's a very major breakthrough, and now many other cities started flowing it up. Regarding the reuse of treated water, Namami Gange had come out with the national framework on safe use of treated water. We also, in consultation with GIZ, this particular paper framework is a very good document on various aspects of using this treated water, the finance model, as well as the business model associated with this is mentioned in that. We also have set up the Center of Excellence with the TERI in government of in Delhi, so where we also look at the various aspects of water reuse. We also have partnership with industries and commercialization of the TADOX technology, which is developed by TERI, etc. So that is also a part of it. Along with that, we have this multiple capacity building programs with the CSE, one of the very reputed institutions in the country. And I'm very happy to be associated with them, because they also had done a lot of capacity building programs. Many municipalities have joined them in this thing. And the focus, as I mentioned now, is getting on the sewage treatment in the cities and also on the reuse of this treated water. Under the chairmanship of the Secretary to Government of India, the Ministry of Water Resources, we conduct meetings almost every 2 months with all the chief secretaries and the associated with the sewage management in the cities, and we take stock of the quantity of sewage generated in the cities and how it is being addressed, the capacity existing for the treatment of sewage, the capacity which is being developed, and the capacity to be the gap to be filled in. These are analyzed almost every 2 months, and various funding options are taken up from an NMCG with on the Ganga basin cities and towns, with under NRCD and under AMRUT too, and also from state governments. So we are building a very comprehensive database and action plan for handling the sewage in the cities, as well as for a better use of that water, because India, when it dreams to have a $5 trillion economy in 2030, we need water as a very key resource to sustain its growth. So water, which is now getting more and more depleted and as well as polluted because of various interventions, has to be properly addressed. And the Prime Minister Modi ji has really recognized this as a very important key resource from the Ministry of Jal Shakti, combining various departments which were hitherto handling water in silos. So now a comprehensive coordinated decision-making process has been initiated. The Jal Jeevan Mission, which is to provide water for every household in the country, as well as the Swachh Bharat Mission, where here Honorable Prime Minister started in 2014 to provide toilets in houses. They combinedly address the water availability as well as the water quality. And the flagship program Namami Gange is also addressing the polluted river stretches in the country. So comprehensively, water has got its importance now. Water treatment and water reuse has got importance now. The institutions like CSE and NIUA join hands with Namami Gange for
There's a break now.
I think there are some network issues at DG Search end. Hello.
Just somebody can inform, sir. Maybe he may be speaking and not knowing.
Sure, sir. Sure.
Sumita, if you can also call Nidhi and tell her.
Yes, sir. I'll just check.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. So I just talked to Madhavji. So DG sir has asked to continue the webinar. So that he faced some issues, yeah. So we can continue, sir. With Chaurasia, sir. You can.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sharing the screen with his bio series.
So I would like to thank DG Mr. Ashok Kumar for his opening introduction about NMCG, and I would like to now welcome Chaurasia ji. Shri VK Chaurasia is the joint advisor of CPHEEO, and he is in fact leading the CPHEEO work in India, which is a very important work. We know that Central Public Health and Engineering organizations were set up recognizing that sanitation is a public health issue, and therefore CPHEEO plays a leading role in setting the standards of and identifying technologies which are best suited for India. And it's a very challenging issue given the scale India is, the kind of towns we have from small, medium, large. So in all that context, Chaurasia ji plays a leading role. Sunita Narayan, our DG at CSE, has told me that Chaurasia ji has been an old friend, and she has worked with him when they were drafting the last 5-year plans as part of the expert group. Chaurasia ji was, anchoring that work from the ministry. And so we are very thankful. Chaurasia ji has also led the SBM guidelines, SPM 2.0 guidelines, and I would now invite Chaurasia ji to share his ideas about this topic of urban used water management. And last week itself, there was a big workshop held 2 weeks back in Bangalore, where Mr. Ganapati ji was also there and Chaurasia ji was also there. So Chaurasia ji, over to you.
Sir, you are on mute, sir. Chaurasia, sir? Sir, you are on mute.
Yes. Thank you very much, Kapoorji, for introducing me. Of course, in used water management sector, definitely we are trying to do whatever the bit we can do with association of all our stakeholder partners. At this very important webinar, I would like to greet Ashok Kumarji, Director General. I think because of some engagement, sir has left that. And apart from that, Ganapati ji, Biswanath ji, and whole CSC team and our audiences who are very keen to join hands and solve this problem of used water management in the country. I welcome each one of you. And in fact, thanks CSC for giving me opportunity for such a important forum where I can interact with our audiences and we can come on the same platform. So at the end of presentation or at the end of discussion, whatever the queries are there, we will be there to interact and be let us say open in throwing any sort of questions or doubts which you are having, because we learn only through your questions more and more. Otherwise we will speak and go out of it, and that's all. So we welcome whatever queries are there, whatever will be able to possible, we will respond. Others we can respond separately. So one thing is very important, and you all know that to execute such a big sort of missions or programs, political commitment and then implementing setup, both are very important. Fortunately, in the country, political commitment is there, funds are available. If we have ideas, if we have, let us say, commitment, if we have projects, there is no dearth of fund. This is very clear that fund that used to be earlier an issue is not a issue anymore. So the next important thing comes that how to implement this as per, let us say, objective or let us say targets of the country, which even the Prime Minister has also several times emphasized that untreated used water should not be let into water body and environment. So keeping these things already huge amount, around more than 2 lakh crore of funds are available here for implementation over a mission period, which is a very all 4,800 towns in one or another way we are covering. I don't think in such a large massive scale in any program anywhere in the world such type of initiative is being taken. So this becomes all more important that we cross learn from each other and discuss extensively so that desired objective is met. Why we want that we should discuss more? Because unless we discuss and learn from each other, properly plan, keeping short-term vision, long-term vision, and then implementing according to priority, the desired objective maybe sometime may not be achieved. In few cases it may be possible, but majority of the cases it will be a difficult thing. So in this situation, rather than adopting a piecemeal approach, it will be very important that we identify the planning area, planning zones, and then that location of these things, and apart from that, which type of technology to be taken, and which will be right type of let us say partners, contractors, or even the people who would help in preparation of such type let us say plans. One thing we are increasingly seeing that although this sort of program is there, but when we go to let us say state level or at ULB level, we find there is a huge crunch of let us say very well, let us say, experienced people for planning state strategy and guiding our ULB. In that situation, what is happening, that many times ULBs are not so much experienced selection of technology, processes, proper planning. They are very good in execution. They can procure another thing. But in this area, if things are not properly planned, then ultimately it will either system will be uneconomical to maintain, or even after execution, we find some point of time if this is not very suitable to us. This has been observed in the past, because if you see the data from that CPCB and treatment, you will find that out of 44% the capacity we could install, operational is let us say not more than 28%, 9%. And out of that, operational is around 36%, and capacity utilized somewhere is 28%, and norms that is meeting is less than 20%. So in spite of doing, we are not able to utilize and treat and meet the objective. So learning from this is very important for the remaining parts, and also for retrofitting it, so that the basic objective of treating this used water and saving our environment and water body from pollution can be achieved. Here, this sort of webinars and the proper planning and lot of discussion and strategy become very, very important. And related to these things, the basic challenges that we have been seeing is that sometime it comes that there is a constraint of land. It comes like that. That major constraint comes here if it is that. So what is the solution for that? Here, I think, and at many forums we are discussing with the states also, there is a need to see from different perspectives. See, once we see transportation and public health, both have to go together. On one hand, transportation provide developmental opportunities for there. If we are going to construct any highway, any metro, even in busiest part of the city or anywhere, huge land can be acquired, and that too all with public fund. But when it comes for public health, where our well-being, becoming our well-being and contributing is very important, we often stuck with that there is no land available, and this land is nothing compared to what we are putting in highway, another thing with public fund. So the need of our is, and some of the states are already doing that, each state should identify suitable land according to topography, and they purchase. If nearby government land is not available, they purchase. And purchasing land is not anything that like cement and other thing we are purchasing and it is going to be wasted. Even if we are purchasing land, it is a big investment, and tomorrow even utilizing this land, whatever the additional, because of increase in population flow is coming, that can be treated. Another thing, by purchasing this land, we can frame a proper, let us say, scheme. Otherwise, what happens? The flow is coming in one direction. After that, we are pumping, taking to upstream direction where land is available. So often in such a situation, our ULB face a problem of maintaining such schemes, and it used to bypass. This is not our objective for constructing only. It is not an infrastructure project unless it helps in enhancing public health of the people, environment, and giving citizen satisfaction. Such type of only program where you create infrastructure and provide UC, and that's end, that should be avoided rigorously. That should be avoided. This is the region that land is not a constraint. This message we have to bring to each and everyone. Another thing, often there has been that if we set up STP, the land value go down and people protest another thing. 2 days back, I was in Karad, Maharashtra, and even Malkapur, I could see that and discuss with their official. Their STPs are very close to residential area and other. Then, in fact, just like any one of you, I also raised that people won't be registering and all these things. They told, sir, those time have gone when there was no focus on in whatever the treatment plant were set up. After that, there was no maintenance and things were let out like anything, like you have seen in case of solid waste management. If you put any, let us say, dustbin, lot of resistance used to come. I remember very well in Swachh Bharat Mission when first time it was launched in 2014. 14, 15 to 16, even we used to get call from minister, honorable MLAs that this is my relative, this is my house, dustbin should not be kept. But when over 2-3 years, our ULB has geared up, system has geared up, no any complaint from last 6-7 years, no complaint at all. Similar thing is in case of used water management also. If we sincerely treat, give a contract to somebody to operate, if we are not able to do, then such type of technologies are there. Through proper maintenance, there is not going to be smell, there is not going to be problem. Another important thing and constant is selection of technology. In selection of technology, already Kapoorji mentioned many of the options, how we should go. Those all options are fine. But the last option I would like to add, where he is mentioning that FSTP plus this decentralized wastewater treatment system for very small town it may be fine, and even I find in such a cases also lot of around 1000 ke kareeb FSTPs are constructed at very let us pace never seen before. Like that it has been done. But if you see their utilization, their norms, how they have been constructed, and the system of let us say septic tank that is available, those all factors are not duly taken care, and because of that often overcapacity is there and it is not properly utilized. So rather than creating something which is not properly utilized, it is always advisable that when in next town also nearby, once in a while, whenever fecal sludge comes, that can be transported and co-treated. So that will also able to meet the objective. So similar sort of all other options, IND, and even in case of holistic systems, I will mention in case of Karad, the important thing that they did is their people develop vision. Some of the people can have elected representative or executive officer, anybody can have vision. Their political leadership have vision that whatever used water is coming, that should not be let out in water body without treatment, because we are taking that water for drinking purposes, and also we have been worshipping rivers and other, then how we should leave that water. So in as far as 1974, their leadership was able to visualize that we will properly collect this wastewater, treat, and we will utilize for agriculture purpose, and that amount of water we will not take from river. This is what at Government of India level after 40 years we are planning and thinking. See the difference in vision. A similar sort of things in Malkapur also, they have gone for 24/7, the waste management, everything. What I'm telling, that vision is very important, long-term vision. All other problems can be easily thrashed out. And this is what happened. You can imagine in 1974, where funding will come, who will give technical advice. But once a official has taken a stand, once an elected representative has taken a step that how my city will be there, all problems over the time is solved, and they are very true to that circular economy which we are aspiring. So similar sort of whatever the let us say constraints are there, whether it is a capacity or whether it is a land constraint or whether any sort of these things are there, that can be sorted out. The need is that properly plan, discuss with each other, and wherever there are any constraint, that can be elevated to next level, even it can come to us also. So these things will be definitely going to solve all the constraint. And another thing here, I plan that our task should not be only that treat and meet certain standard and leave that. We have to go beyond that. As I mentioned in previous case, now at Government of India level, even with intervention of Prime Minister Office, now Chief Secretaries are already discussing on how to recycle and reuse this, and similar type of different groups is there to promote circular economy, that let us say framework and concept. So wherever we are making schemes, this we have to take it as an opportunity, and wherever we are utilizing this, I'm not telling from anything of what I have do, but what I have learned from the people. Like Abhi Karad mein, I will mention I met with their farmers also. The treated used water they are using, in those cases the consumption of fertilizer has gone to less than 50% or even zero in many cases, they were telling. This is leading towards organic farming, and our health and other things that has deteriorated because of chemical fertilizer and other, all those things will be drastically improved. So similar sort of things are there, and planning another thing, already we are guiding all the state people and other that how to prepare, plan and other. So whatever queries are there, we are there to solve. Even you can email also, you can send through CSC also, and we are there to solve this problem. But one thing in the last I would like to mention, the scheme you design, unless it is low in capex, low in opex, low skill, many of our ULB won't be able to sustain. So only creating a infrastructure should be avoided. Do only, let it not be a perfect, let it treat 70-80%, but it should start treating rather than creating a very high one another. And another last point is, I would like to mention that regarding standards, there are a lot of confusion. As I brought out clearly in our ready reckoner also, that the norms that were notified by MOFCC was stayed, and after that whatever Honorable NGT directed could notify, MOEF could not notify within a month, and they went to Honorable Supreme Court, where we all are supporting that in smaller towns and other same where all that strict standards should not be there. That is not required, especially when we are doing agriculture, which is all around our towns. So similar cases may, we should not give anybody chance that okay, only this SBR and MBR can only meet that standard and other. This is absolutely not warranted, and that's why repeatedly I'm telling think tank and knowledgeable people should at least help in planning. I have seen now over past 2-3 months many sewage treatment plant, the sewage BOD that is coming is ranging from 50 to 150. In many cases, 80, 90, 100. We are designing for 250. So these people used to come and tell, with 250 BOD, it will not be able to, all technology will not be able to meet norms, and then there will be problem. That is not there. On actual basis, if you design, especially for a smaller town, because larger cities mein to whatever trend is going, that is fine. Smaller cities mein, if we see waste stabilization pond, even if you see USB, ABR or this filter, anaerobic filters, or even trickling filter with policy pond, they are all robust technology. If you utilize that, even in our ULB, let us say it will develop over the time in habit and regulation and other thing. These simple technologies are also there. If we standardize and tell all ULB to follow on similar line, rather than everybody exploring and falling in trap of many agencies or technology providers, they will be in safe hand. And these things CSC can help to standardize, whether design, whether BOQ, whether tender document. Like in case of UP, all if you think it will be next to impossible for them to do. But it is a very simple job for you, and state will be grateful to CSC that if you, let us say, identify 4 or 5 robust technology, I am going to give this option, and it is not some restriction that you have to use this. If anybody wants to use something else, let they get approval and file that according to their situation this is required. I think it will be a fantastic job and help for the state, and similar approach we are telling for all other states also. So with this I would stop and only say that huge opportunity is lying, enough work is there, everybody can do and contribute. Let us join hand and work for the people, so that our public health and whatever international commitments are there that we can make. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Chaurasia ji, for your kind words and your thoughtful ideas. And please stay on. Aap rukiye zarur end tak. And I would now invite Ganpati. And PG Ganpati is also an old colleague, ex-colleague, and a friend of mine. And he has worked with CDD Society, and his CV is there in front of you. So Ganpati was with heading CDD and is currently an advisor there, and has been as an independent consultant providing support to various organizations from McKinsey to IIHS, IDEC, Wipro, JUSCI, and others, and also with the World Bank, ADB, and in several other capacities with other corporates, including Vatek and Mahindra Group on their real estate work and infrastructure. Ganpati also has done actually a very good pioneering work on lakes restoration, which is not mentioned here. And so when I was inviting Ganpati today, I was asking him, what will you speak on? So he reminded me that about 2 weeks back or 3 weeks back, in under the leadership of Chaurasia ji and CPHEEO, there was a big conference held in Bangalore where the secretary was also there on this topic of used water management. So I asked Ganpati ji to actually then share the kind of presentation, because I had seen him make a very good presentation on IND. So I would request him to, contribute, please. Over to you, Ganpati.
You can share your screen, sir. You can share your screen. Yeah.
Okay, I've unmuted. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are loud and clear.
Okay, I'll just share my screen. One second. So is my screen visible?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So very good morning to all participants, and thank you, Dipender, for the nice introduction. Before I go on to the presentation I made on interception and diversion of drains, I just thought, in keeping with the topic of the event, I'll just do a quick summary on opportunities and challenges, the way I see it, in very brief kind of fashion. And many of you, Chaurasia ji, as well as yourself, have highlighted it in your speech, but this is just a summary view that I thought I'll present. So I think there's great opportunity in reuse, as we spoke about, not only wastewater, but also sludge. And I specifically want to emphasize local reuse, because one of the biggest challenges in reuse is how do you transport that water all the way to the point of use from the point of treatment. And so as long as you can close the loop at smaller scales, the reuse itself could become more economical and therefore could go up. Water body rejuvenation, restoring our lakes, rivers to their previous pristine conditions, and particularly in this context, interception and diversion schemes, because the drains carry wastewater and they are the main pollutants for the water body. There is opportunity, I think, in looking at more passive systems or nature-based solutions, as some may call it, where there is greater sustainability in both financial as well as environmental sustainability, where it's possible that one uses less energy, less chemicals, and less moving parts, which also create a problem for maintenance and stuff like that. There is great opportunity, and Chaurasia ji mentioned this, in overall cost management, whereas in trying to look at both capex and opex, but I'll single out opex more than capex, because capex at least can be funded by a lot of these one-time programs like Swachh Bharat Mission and so on. And it may not be a bad idea to engineer systems that are not expensive in capex, but at least match the current technologies and schemes. But on OPEX, if we can save money, then the sustainability is even more assured, because ULBs generally struggle more for OPEX, whereas capex get funded by state programs and national programs very often. So systems like decentralized systems, small networks, passive solutions, those that involve less pumping, those are all opportunities in terms of better cost management also, apart from being more sustainable technologies. Better on-site systems, I think there is great opportunity to reinvent, in my view, on-site systems. When I say reinvent, maybe it is more suited in a rural context, less in urban, or could be suited for the fringe areas and the peri-urban areas, where instead of just having, let's say, the kind of insanitary things that get implemented, if we can have better designed, more engineered on-site systems, there is opportunity for that to become standard wherever networks don't make sense. And that, coupled with fecal sludge treatment as well as fecal sludge management and co-treatment and so on, would also be relevant the way I see it. Then sustainable models for community toilets and public toilets. I think there's some discovery to be done there. Not all situations should sort of go for private toilets, and how do we create more financially viable as well as more sanitary as well as environmentally sensitive community toilets and public toilets. I think there's great opportunity to reinvent that. Indirect potable reuse is another idea. Indirect aquifer recharge with treated wastewater is another area, I think, which is less explored. Because there's not much regulation that's clear on aquifer recharge with treated wastewater. Some states have some laws, but at a national level and across many states, we don't have a uniform policy yet on how to do this, or whether it's worthwhile or should be encouraged or not encouraged. In terms of challenges, I do see solid waste as a big challenge. They enter our both sewer systems and drains more than sewer systems. But this has to do a bit with citizen behavior change, where we tend to flush all kinds of things in the toilet, including solid waste, and not to speak of drains. All of us are aware of that situation. I think insanitary and inadequately engineered on-site systems, I mentioned that already. Every challenge is actually an opportunity in that sense. Then financial sustainability, while it is improving, and Ashok ji mentioned about how the hybrid annuity models are working and so on, but I still would like to see well-established models of commercial viability in public provision of sewerage services. There's still a struggle to make ends meet, and a lot of budgetary support is still needed. And I think that should move where a lot of the cost is met by user charges, which are levied either on water or directly as sewerage cess and so on. But we are still some distance away from financial sustainability, the way I see it. There's a very underdeveloped ecosystem of contractors and operators for small-scale systems. I believe small-scale systems should coexist with large-scale, but I find that but compared to a decade ago, today it's a much developed system in certain parts of the country, definitely. Like Bangalore is a good example where there's a growing ecosystem of contractors and operators. We have reached a point, I think, where it's come to a good state of maturity, but still a long way to go. Issues of right-of-way, encroachments, high cost of laying sewer networks, the delays and the road cutting and those sort of things, and the kind of things that one goes through in typical sewer systems, which are part of centralized systems. In many cases, I think the drains are getting encroached for sewer networks. We can see, at least in Bangalore, a situation where you'll see manholes in the middle of drains, and that's affecting and creating flooding problems and other kinds of problems. Then last but not the least, I think Chaurasaji touched upon this, and I'm glad to hear that we are revisiting the regulation and making it more contextual to small towns, big towns, large systems, small systems, on-site systems. We still need to regularize this, according to me. There is some scope for better regulation. With that said, I'll just go to the main topic, and I'll try and be as quick as possible. So talking about interception and diversion, I think we all would broadly agree that used water will continue to flow in our drains for maybe a couple of decades more until we have reasonably set up sewer network solutions throughout. Otherwise, septic tank overflows or untreated water will continue to flow in our drains. that these risks are well known: public health risk, environment risk, and it affects the overall aesthetics of the town. No, Swachhata, as well as there's an element of smell and the look and feel. Everything gets affected by what's happening in the drains. Therefore, it needs to be safely managed. Goes without saying. And when you look at used water management, I think it's important to understand that there are two aspects: the quality and quantity, Q and Q as it is referred to. There are multiple cases. There are cases where septic tank, only grey water flows, which is your bathing water, kitchen water, and so on, in drains. There are cases where septic tank overflows and grey water flows, and there are cases where there is no septic tank, no treatment, raw sewage, along with grey water flows in the drains. And each of these scenarios would create different kinds of quality and to a certain degree quantity also in the drains. And in my opinion, the overall management strategy of how you manage water flowing in your drains is linked to this kind of quality and quantity. And what are the other key drivers of management approach of wastewater flowing in drains? As I said, quality and quantity. Then the nature of the drain itself, whether what's the size of the drain, the cross section, right of way, whereas an open drain, closed drain, lined, unlined, would make a difference. And the nature of wet season flows, which is how much is the drain carrying during wet seasons, would also influence the kind of interception structure you need to build and so on. Then Chaurasiji talked about level slopes and so on, while looking at treatment infrastructure. How is the overall drain characteristics? Where is the location of the STP vis-a-vis the drain and so on? And downstream characteristics in terms of the terminating water body, the quality of that water body, and what is the extent of pollution downstream from where you're treating. So, but the overall objective is to mitigate pollution in terminating water body and facilitate possibly reuse at a local level. And the management approaches based on all these factors I mentioned are going to be highly contextual. There's not going to be too many cookie cutter kind of approaches where you can cut and paste a solution. This requires far more understanding of local conditions and local, both technical and social conditions. Add to that challenges like solid waste, effluent, sewage effluent, industrial effluent sometimes being carried in the drains, encroachments, and silt and weed deposits and so on, which make it more complicated. So when you have this background in this situation, what are the two main approaches? So one of them is to treat in the right of way of the drain itself, because you typically can't find land, which I refer to as inline treatment. The other is to intercept, divert, and take it to STP, which is either nearby or far away. And so when you talk of inline treatment, it's based on our experience at CDD and whatever I've done in this area. I think we have found it quite challenging to design this in most situations, because generally there are high monsoon flows in most parts of the country. When monsoon flows are high, any kind of inline treatment would have to withstand the monsoon flows. And when you have wide drains, maybe you can consider this. I've just put a number like greater than 6 meters, but it could, wider the better. One can, if you're short of land, look at the land within the drain itself as possible location for some form of treatment, minimal treatment. It also depends on the quality of wastewater being carried. If it's of low strength, it's possible to think about some kind of inline treatment. But intercept and divert is going to be the more popular or more relevant thing to look at. But I would strongly recommend to see if we can put it in abutting sites very nearby. The longer you have to transport, one would run into, the cost goes up first of all, but you may require pumping and so on. So where you can have nearby sites, and if you can put it back in the drain or a nearby water body, that makes actually far more sense, according to me. So these are just some pictorial representations of them. In the inline treatment, you could have a drain that looks like what is there on your right. The kind of wetland ecosystem that develops could even be a very natural kind of ecosystem. One doesn't have to do much in the form of having a constructed system there, but while designing, keeping in mind how you treat the edge, how do you create a meandering flow, and so on, would help in creating an inline treatment mechanism. When you talk about intercept and divert, you would typically intercept in such a way that dry season flows are diverted, whereas wet season flows would continue straight. And then the dry season flows would get taken to an abutting site like an STP. And then from the STP, you would treat and probably put it in a water body like it's shown in this picture. So this is the kind of schemes that one could imagine, for till as long as such wastewater is flowing in our drains. And even after wastewater stops flowing, I think these are still relevant because they could, to a certain degree, even purify, stormwater and so on. And when you talk about design considerations for such a system, what we have found in our experience at CDD is that how do we handle solid waste in the drain has become the topmost challenge. And to have a robust system that screens it and you have a system by which it is removed and it doesn't block the flow itself is one of the most important aspects of design. And then, of course, finding the land which is at an appropriate topography so that you don't have to pump water. But even if you have to pump, there's a bit of hydraulic lift involved in that. But yeah, if there's no other suitable location, there's no option but to intercept and pump. But something like a gravity flow is desirable. And then, so the other considerations are, it should allow for monsoon flows to pass through it without blocking the monsoon flow. So how do you create systems for that? Then the output quality that is required post-treatment before you put it back in the water body or before you reuse, that would be another consideration for designing the system. The quantity and quality of flows, as I mentioned earlier. Then keeping the cost low, how do you design a robust, cost-effective and easy to operate system? These are the kind of factors that go into thinking and conceptualizing a design scheme for interception and diversion. I won't get into further details, but show you some snapshots of projects that have recently been implemented in which CDD has worked. This is a Coimbatore 8 Lakes project where under the Coimbatore Smart Cities mission, 8 lakes were rejuvenated mainly on a placemaking thing, but the water management formed a reasonable portion of the overall plan. And we looked at how before water enters various lakes, they are intercepted and diverted, taken to a nearby STP as the treatment system, and then put into the lake through wetlands. So that's a kind of scheme that has recently been implemented in Coimbatore. This is a plan we've made for Karauli in Rajasthan, yet to be implemented, where the river Bhadravati flows on the right side, you can see, next to the town, and there are multiple points from which the town is putting water directly into Bhadravati River. Significant amount of solid waste and liquid waste and commercial things like waste from abattoirs and so on. Various things go into this river. And how can we then create an interception system that will allow monsoon waters to flow while taking the dry season flows to a point where, in this particular case, because the river is on the lower side, the land was on the higher side, we had to develop a scheme which also provides for pumping water to a nearby STP. Closer home in Bangalore, this project was implemented and commissioned in 2019, and it's been successfully operating in Mahadevpura Lake, funded by CSR, where we designed, we took one of the drains entering the lake and set up a 1 million liters per day treatment system. This is the initial screen before water goes into the lake, and that's the interception structure that you see below, from which so this is how solid waste gets screened there. So the intercepted water goes through a diversion channel where further micro level screening happens, two-stage screening, and then this whole channel takes it to a sedimentation tank that you can see, and then from there it goes into an equalization or a balancing tank. Then we have a passive system in the form of DWATs for 1 MLD. It's the largest DWAT system built, you can say, in the world, and it's treating water and putting it into wetlands that have been created on the edge of the lake, and this is functioning quite well and very low maintenance. Hardly one person is needed. Even that is not needed for security reasons. One person is being maintained there. Fortunately, the pump, the hydraulic, there's no energy required for process, but there's a small energy required to lift the water because the inlet level is below the full tank level of the lake. So we have to lift the water. And except for that, and fortunately, we've been able to design a robust system which is 95 to 99% availability has been there. We've had only 3-4 days of breakdown. Otherwise, everything has been operating very well in this location. And it's any kind of gardener or a very security guy can just oversee this, clean the solid waste, open the gates, close it, and all of those things can be done. Very minimal maintenance is needed. So this is another, so an innovation diversion arrangement that is economical and robust was, I think, the hallmark of this project, apart from the large-scale 1 MLD passive system DWATs that has also been set up. So in conclusion, in my view, I think I&D schemes are going to be quite important for another 2 decades until we have a situation where very little wastewater is flowing in our used water is flowing in our drains, which may take a lot of time. And so one of the points I want to mention here is that unlike sewer systems where we design for growth, saying that population is going to grow, city is going to become bigger, and let's design to a higher size. In my view, I&D systems you can design to the current flow, because with more and more sewer systems getting implemented, likely that dry season flows will come down, and hopefully there'll be improvement in quality. So the systems you create today may continue to be relevant, for today's volume, even in the future. So no need to oversize and design for a future scenario. Inline treatment in general has been challenging. It's good to try it out only in big drains and leave it to even natural kind of wetlands to take care of it. Designing the I&D structure is very key, and I think it's very highly contextual based on the hydraulic levels and so on. There's no one design for an I&D structure. The treatment process, like Chaura Seji was mentioning, should be kept simple, robust, not complicate, and very often water flowing in the drains is of lower, let's say, medium strength or low strength compared to what flows in our sewer networks. And therefore, treatment process can be simple for that reason also. And I think the output quality standards need to be relaxed based on the reuse which is applied to, like if it's agriculture, you can have one kind of standard. And the receiving water body condition or downstream conditions. If it's again getting polluted, BOD going to 30 or something, or the water body itself is not very pristine, there's no point treating it to 10 BOD and spending a lot of money on that when you're pouring it back into a system which is more polluted. So just that's in summary. With that, I'll conclude my talk and would be happy to take the balance during questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Ganpati. Thank you for this presentation.
I've been able to stick to my time because we're
yeah, it is okay. We have still 250 people on, more than that, on the list of participants. So, without further delay, I would like to...
You can stop sharing your screen. Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks, Ganpati, and I would like to invite now Vishwanath. Vishwanath is one of the most knowledgeable persons, I would say, at the moment in India on the issues of water and wastewater. He's also known as Zen Rain Man, which you can see on his email ID. And the kind of ideas Vishwanath is promoting, I think, are required for India. And I hope that we have many more Vishwanaths in many other parts of the country which speak in a language which is understood and speak in the technical understanding, which is rare these days, of combining various aspects of wastewater and groundwater recharge. So Vishwanath has been able to do it, and he has his Million Wells program, or the idea of a wells as recharge structures required in our cities, is very unique and is very required. I hope at some stage, somewhere it will be picked up by the national missions, as in India as well as elsewhere. So Vishwanath, we have 15 minutes in there. You can please go on, because as I said, there are going 250 participants still there. So over to you. Thank you for joining.
Thanks, thanks, Dipendra, for the kind words. And if you'll enable screen sharing.
Yeah, you can.
There you have it.
Yes. Yes, sir. It's visible.
Yeah, and it's full screen now, I hope.
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right, great. So I'll just sort of give a quick snapshot of both the formal and informal systems of wastewater and fecal sludge, as well as the centralized and decentralized systems which have been in operation in Bangalore city, the city where I come from, and pose the solutions that are emerging and the challenges that remain before us. And it's sort of a continuation of what Ganpati was saying. So, and I'll go very quickly because this is full of photographs and I want to do justice within the 15-20 minutes that have been given. One of the things that we have to understand with wastewater is, of course, the robustness of the water supply system determines how much wastewater is generated. the more we know about the water supply system, the more institutional oversight we have, the more metering and tariff we have, the better understanding we have of the total volumes of wastewater being generated. And we are lucky in Bangalore because the Bangalore Water Supply and Sewerage Board was the first specialized institution to be set up in India as early as 1964. The other issue that challenges Bangalore is that we get our water from 95 kilometers away, 300 meters below the city, which makes it very costly water. As you can see, the cost of production and treatment and supply of water is rupees 95 a kiloliter. That's the true cost of water. And it comes from a faraway source, the Kaveri source. So therefore, the water coming into the city is very precious. And hence, the wastewater that is generated also becomes precious. Of the total that we get into the city, we get about 1,450 million liters per day from the Kaveri River, and groundwater, which is unmeasured, is approximated to be about 600 million liters per day, plus another 775 million liters will be coming into the city in the next year. That's part of the Kaveri first place. There are 1 million connections approximately of water and wastewater, and about 2 million households are connected because every connection has 2 houses is the assumption, right? And so this is how it goes. And as usual, it's not the city center which is the challenge, but the periphery of the city, which is the challenge for both water supply and for that sewage distribution. We are lucky that a set of bylaws are being pushed through by the institution, which includes metering. And we have a tradition of metering every connection since the 1930s in Bangalore. And recently, the BWSSB has also mandated that every flat which comes up in a set of apartments, every flat should have its own meter. And that there's an increasing block tariff, which gives us some sort of a signal to send for demand management of water use, therefore reducing the wastewater generated. The bylaws and regulations are also focused around rainwater harvesting and wastewater recycling. Rainwater harvesting is mandatory for any house which is more than 13 to 40 feet site, or more than 100 square meter in plinth area. And wastewater recycling is also mandatory. As you can see here, I won't delve deep into it. Any set of flats more than 20 have to have their own wastewater treatment plant, or if it's more than 10,000 square meters. Commercial buildings, 2,000 square meters and above have to have their own wastewater treatment system. So this means that there are more than 3,600 decentralized wastewater treatment plants, either operational or set up in the apartments and layouts all across Bangalore. Now, the big challenge with wastewater, both untreated and treated, is that there are claimants on this wastewater. Because water is a scarce commodity and wastewater or used water is also a scarce commodity. What are the 3 big claimants? There's an ecological and environmental claimant. That is to say, the lakes and rivers can lay claim to the treated used water because they are needed for environmental flows and ecological flows, or for the lake to be full. Then there's an agricultural claimant because agriculture is the dominant user of water, and this nutrient-rich used water, normally agriculturists lay claim to it. Then, of course, there's the urban and industrial reuse claimants, which are the newly emerging claims. And these have the propensity to be able to afford to pay for this water, especially industrial units can afford to pay for the treated used water, whereas ecological, environmental, and agriculture may not have the capacity to pay. So we need to work out a balance between these 3 uses for the reused water as to where it should all go. That will be the challenge before us. As an example, just on the periphery of Bangalore, small town of Vijaypura, 45,000 population approximately, a sewerage network in place, but no sewage treatment plant because the town simply couldn't afford it and there was no land available. And the farmer next to the town, Muniraj, he picks up this untreated wastewater, mind you, which flows otherwise to the lake. He puts it in what you would call a small settling tank. Now he's created a second oxidation tank. He puts it into that, the farmer. And this is representative of all farmers, about 60 of them close to the town of Vijaypura. And then he pumps this treated wastewater onto his field. This is how the pumping is done. And you can see a crop growing behind him. He practices furrow irrigation. He's now going into drip irrigation also. The furrow irrigation means that the workers of the field are not in direct contact with the sewage. And the sewage is used to grow a particular crop. And this particular crop is mulberry, which is a non-edible crop. And this is important because when you grow a non-edible crop, the crop does not enter the food chain, right? So it goes out of the food chain. So you de-risk consumers of this used water you reuse. So mulberry is grown, and this is a favorite of mine because this mulberry is a perennial crop. It grows throughout the year, and it grows extensively in the surrounding areas. And all the used water which is generated from Vijaypura is consumed by this land. This mulberry leaf is then used to feed the silkworm. The silkworms are very sensitive creatures. They do 2 jobs here. They're functional. They're growing to get cocoons, but at the same time, they're also bioindicator of the quality of the leaf, which is fertilized with untreated wastewater. So they're sending both these signals. And these cocoons then are developed through the eating of the mulberry leaves. These silk cocoons grow, they're turned into yarn in the same town of Vijaypura, and then they're spun into saris. So you have taken shit and converted it to silk, untreated wastewater to silk. The likelihood is that the town of Vijaypura is unlikely to get a sewage treatment plant in the near future. Even if it gets an FSTP, it's not going to deal with this because there's a sewage network in place and sewage is being generated. So FSTPs are not able to manage this. So how can we then engage with this practice of the farmer? Can we engage with it formally and try to minimize the health risk and environmental risk so that this livelihood continues to use and wastewater is converted to a source of livelihood and productive use? For which there is the sanitation safety plan, a template developed by the World Health Organization, which looks at not a standards approach, but a risk approach, and then tries to see how risk can be identified at points of contact and then minimized or de-risked, right? For example, as I was mentioning to you, if you grow a non-edible crop, you have de-risked consumers. If you do furrow irrigation or drip irrigation, you de-risk the farm worker, and so on and so forth. If you grow mulberry, then it consumes all the wastewater and doesn't allow it to percolate below 1 foot. So therefore, it de-risks the groundwater from contamination. So would India also want to work with these kind of processes using the sanitation safety plan till we get all our FSTPs and STPs in place, till all the sewage is collected and treated adequately? Because it will take some time for that to happen. And in that meantime, how do we engage with the risks that are being generated by used water? Is a question that I asked for you. The farmer himself then becomes wealthy, and then he can afford to put on-plot sanitation systems like a oxidation pond, for example, for the town itself on his farm. So can we have this kind of cooperation between farmers who do the preliminary treating of oxidation ponds and then reuse it? And can this be monitored and regulated by whoever is appointed for it, a health officer or agricultural officer, so that it's controlled in certain fashion and that the sanitation safety plan is put into place? So this is the question that one asks. It's the same with the honeysuckers. A lot of honeysuckers are able to take the waste from these pit toilet and septic tanks and take them to FSTPs. But a lot of them are also taken to farms, put into composting, like the Acharya method of composting. And this composting has a resale value. And this compost is used with farmyard manure to grow fruits like bananas and grapes. So can we also use the sanitation safety plan to understand the risks being posed by this kind of use and try and mitigate it, but at the same time take the farmers as partners as part of the solution seeking space? It's a question that I asked for you. Now, untreated wastewater from the city of Bangalore itself has a great big footprint. You see the red line, that's roughly about 42 kilometers, the big red patch. This is one of the streams which flows out of the city, the river Dakshin Pinakini. It carries a lot of untreated wastewater. And this particular patch, if you look on Google Earth, will always be green. Even in peak summer, it will be green because it's nutrient-rich water flowing in the Dakshin Pinakini. This is how the untreated wastewater looks like, or used to look like, when it flowed out of the Pelandur and Varkur Lake, full and foaming. But about 5 kilometers away, nature is starting to do its job, and then you don't see the froth and foam. And what you see is that farmers dig small wells next to the river stream itself, allow the filtered water from the Dakshin Pinakini to come in, and as you can see on the right, they're then putting up pumping stations, and sometimes they pump it 7 to 22 kilometers away. They collect it in these kind of farm ponds, mix it with groundwater, or they collect it in wells, mix it with groundwater, because groundwater is very limited. And then they use drip irrigation technologies like the one on the left, and drip irrigation there. And you can see plastic mulching also. They grow flowers and vegetables. They also grow ragi and rice with this untreated wastewater combined with treated wastewater. So if you ask farmers what they want, they say, please stop industrial effluents coming in the wastewater. We don't want heavy metals. They are perturbed about flows. They want assured flows. They want advice on crop choice for the market. Which crops should they grow? Advice on irrigation practice. Can they treat this untreated wastewater on their farm plots and improve it? And on-farm treatment and improvement. Now, farmers are putting in 40, 50 lakh rupees to take this water and use it for irrigation and cultivation. Do we recognize this as a practice which encourages livelihoods? And how do we engage with it? Which institution will engage with these farmers to try and help them improve their practice so that consumers are safe, they are safe, and the farm workers are safe, and the environment is safe? That's one question that we want to ask. So in the process of formalization of this informal use, what Bangalore has done is it's actually decentralized its sewage treatment plants. The city will have 55 sewage treatment plants, typically now of the size of 15 to 40 million liters per day in each one of the valleys that permeate the city itself, right? So 55 sewage treatment plants is a form of decentralization, which is fascinating to see how centralized systems are working. And what it does, and I'll pick one of these valleys, the KC Valley treatment plant. There's a treatment plant there, which you can see. This is how the sewage treatment plants have been coming up over the years, over decades, because as the flows increase, there are newer and newer sewage treatment plants are being set up. So there's an assemblage of sewage treatment plants. They are now trying to match with the NGT ruling and trying to meet up with standards. A huge investment is going in to upgrade the standards, especially reducing P and reducing total nitrogen to less than 10. Then they start to meet the standards which are used for the reused water, which is up here for non-potable use. And about 810 million liters per day. Now it's increased to 1,200 million liters per day of treated wastewater from the city is being shipped out of the city to fill the lakes and tanks surrounding the city. So it's pumped about 42 kilometers, and then it goes to fill the lakes. The lakes in the neighboring districts of Kolar and Chikballapur, Anekal, which are drought-affected districts, climate change-affected districts, all the lakes there, many of the lakes there are being filled with the treated used water from Bangalore. This is one of the first pumping stations. As you can see, this is the pumping is a rising main, which is about 42 kilometers, but this is the only head to which it is pumped, more or less, because from there it cascades down by gravity and then is lifted up barely a few meters and then allowed to cascade down. So it's filling 137 lakes and tanks. So here are the decentralized sewage treatment plants of Bangalore. You monitor the raw sewage parameters of the inflow quality of BOD, COD, and then phosphorus and nitrates, and then you treat them to whatever is the standard now available by the NGT or the CPCB, whichever comes there. You treat it to those adequate standards, and then you ship it through this rising main, and then it goes to this first lake called Lakshmi Sagara. Here it's the treated wastewater is coming into the lake. And this is how the lakes are full, and the first lake itself has fisheries growing in it, and the water cascades down and improves in quality as it cascades down the lake. Now it's changing the whole environment of the place because this water is available 365 days a year. So the biodiversity there is changing, the groundwater levels are coming up, and farmers now have an assured water supply for livelihoods 365 days a year. So treated used water from Bangalore is providing livelihoods to about 64,000 farmers. In turn, the farmers grow food and the city gets food security. In an era of climate change, used water is now precious, and the city is now imagining itself as a water and fertilizer factory, as was pointed out by others. So is this the way of the future? Because then many lakes can be rejuvenated. The overall goal is to rejuvenate 1,000 lakes around the city of Bangalore now, as you can see, some of these photographs that are being there. Now, these waters in the lakes are auctioned by the Gram Panchayat. The fisheries people have to pay money, so the Gram Panchayat starts to earn money, and fishes are grown in these lakes, and revenue goes to the local government. The water is not allowed to be used directly. It recharges the aquifer. Open wells are now filling up, and people are using drip irrigation systems to grow all sorts of vegetables and crops. And this is being monitored by a team from the Indian Institute of Science. As you can see, the farmers now are using drip irrigation systems, and they've returned back to the land to grow crops. Not only is the used water supporting farmers, but the surrounding towns of Kolar and Chikballapur, which are about 60 kilometers away, the lakes around these towns are also getting filled up. This is next to Chikballapur, a huge 134-hectare water spread filled with treated used water and rainwater. And it's recharging the groundwater here in these towns, and the wells in these towns of Kolar and Chikballapur are coming back to life. And this well water is currently being used for non-potable purpose. The question is what water treatment plants would be needed to make sure that this can be reintegrated with the drinking water supply. So used water from a metropolis is supporting the water supply of smaller towns, Kolar and Chikballapur around, like this one in Devanhalli, which is also being used there. There are also ecological uses of treated used water, as this example from Jakkur Lake, which has been a long-standing one, where 15 MLD wastewater treatment plant, as you see marked in red, is situated upstream of the lake. All the wastewater is picked up there, and then the sludge from this wastewater treatment plant is also used as a soil conditioner and taken by farmers, paying 10,000 to 12,000 rupees a truckload. There's no heavy metal in that, and the treated used water is then led into a wetland, and the wetland supports biodiversity, like the weaver's bird here you see, and the wetland polishes the water. It comes into the lake. The lake is always full throughout the year, and it provides livelihoods for fisheries. So fish is cultivated here. It's proteins for the city and livelihoods for the fisher cooperative, and the bird biodiversity increases, so it enhances biodiversity. Now, used water is now becoming a livelihood creator and a biodiversity creator. Not only that, it recharges the aquifer, and this becomes drinking water. Without the yuck factor, this one well can yield 1 lakh liters of water. Overall, the lake is recharging 7 to 7.5 million liters per day. So this is what's happening now. And as Mr. Ganpati was showing, lakes are now getting smaller STPs. The challenge is how do you keep these STPs running and functional and make sure that treated wastewater is used to fill up these tanks and lakes. So there will be about 23 such smaller sewage treatment plants like this one in Cubbon Park, which picks up treated wastewater and uses it for the gardens and public there. Layouts and apartments now are putting up smaller wastewater treatment plants as this one here in 3,600 or more small wastewater treatment plants. On the periphery, there is an informal reuse like this in this building. Farmers pick it up and from the septic tank or the wastewater treatment plant, and then they use it to grow marigold, for example. Farmers are loving the nutrient value. Do we recognize this practice and try to encourage it or discourage it is the question that we have to ask, but it's providing a lot of livelihoods. And the formal decentralized systems range from the phytorrid or the nature-based solutions like this one here in this gated community to the more traditional ones. This is the phytorrid system set up by Neary in this particular place called Rainbow Drive. And in this apartment called TZ, they're using a membrane-based system. As you can see, there's a sand filter, activated carbon filter, ozonizer, and an RO system. And what you see on the right is the chairman of the then chairman of the Pollution Control Board actually drinking this treated wastewater. So this is the first set of apartments that I know of in India, which blends it with groundwater and usually actually drinks the treated used water. So this is the brave new world that's being entered. So from the formal, informal, where untreated wastewater is being used to cultivate mulberry, to the formal, where it's being used for drinking purposes, what there is. So what are the key challenges in the decentralized system? Reuse within apartments is very difficult to achieve. There's a question of overproduction of treated used water. So only 20% of it is used for flushing the toilets, or a lot of it remains, so then it's sent into the stormwater drains. The technology choice is a difficult one to make. The builder wants to minimize on cost. The residents association then have to run it, and how do you handle that will become crucial. Performance consistency is very important. People hesitate to use treated used water, even for flushing if there's a smell, even for 1 or 2 days. So therefore, you need to be consistent without any smell and with the treatment. That's a huge challenge. The human resource power needed for running these treatment plants needs a lot more of skill upgradation and basing. And sludge is virtually unmanaged. So this is what it is. So, but at a city scale, we can imagine that decentralization by the city itself can help service the hinterland. It can provide livelihoods. It can provide climate change security. It can provide food security for the city itself, and it can enhance the biodiversity that is there. So a lot of cities and towns in peninsular India can imagine themselves as water and fertilizer factories. The World Health Organization sanitation safety plan needs a huge relook. We need to figure out which institution will champion the sanitation safety plan and de-risk the reuse of used water and sludge. That's how it goes. And we need to prioritize between ecological, agricultural, and economic uses of urban uses. Fit for purpose standards need to emerge based on what the water is ultimately going to be used for, not just one standard for all over India. Emerging contaminants is an issue. We need to keep a tab on that. And fixing industrial effluent, separating it from domestic sewage will be of great benefit. And of course, wastewater reuse has tremendous potential. Thank you for your time. This is all I wanted to share with you.
Thank you very much, Vishwanath. Those points are very well made, that the benefits are not just reuse, but it's in their social, environmental, and cultural as well as economic aspects, both agriculture and others. And I mean, these slides which you shared, I remembered the ones which I'd seen much earlier. The water supply from Kaveri was around 60 rupees. Now it has gone to 95 rupees per kiloliter. So I think it's very good that you're pursuing these data and presenting it so well for an audience at a national level and global level. I would like to now open it up for any question and answers from, and also any responses from the other.
Sir, we have a few questions in the question and answer section. So
I saw those question and answers, but they are a little very generic, Jyoti. So if there is any particular question, if you have picked up one, then you can mention it. Or if
people can also raise their hand and we will unmute them and they can speak up.
Yeah, that will be better. And just a question, not detailed comments.
So 2 people have raised hand. I'm just allowing them. Yeah, Dr. Devan Kumar Chaudhary, you can speak up. Dr. Devan Kumar Chaudhary.
I think he's muted.
Yeah. You can speak up.
Sir, thank you for nice deliberation. And we have seen and heard a plethora of ideas and development in waste management. Being a man of agriculture, I would like to say something about the challenges and opportunity in used water management in terms of, in case of India, particularly because um, hello, because hello, I am
Yes,
audible,
yes,
sir.
continue, please.
Because we are horse of about 100. Hello.
Yes, please
Hello.
continue.
हेलो अमरेश जी हम डीके चौधरी बोल रहे हैं। हाँ, कह रहे थे कि एक लेट थी। हाँ, ठीक ठाक है। एक वो आप खेती बाड़ी के लिए हम एक थी भेजे थे, क्या नाम है, डायरेक्टर साहब।
I think there are some issues with Chaudhary's end, so I'm allowing another person. Kripan Roy, yeah.
Request him to unmute, please.
Yeah, Mr. Kripan Roy.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. Nice to see my old friend, Mr. Chaurasia. I had an opportunity to work with CPHEEO and NMCG.
Namaskar, Raji.
Thank you very much. So I have few suggestions. Number one is that until unless we connect our kitchen through biodisposer with our sewerage system, our STPs will not function properly. This is number one. Number two, regarding water management, whatever water bodies we are creating under MNREGA and other schemes, that need to be monitored, and that much water should be released in our rivers. Until unless we do that, we cannot increase the flow. And thirdly, Mr. Bishanath was talking about groundwater recharge. If we can have any policy that if we attract water, then like, you plant a tree and you have to plant a number of trees. So like that, there should be some policy that if we extract water, there should be also compulsion for recharging the groundwater. These three suggestions I'm making to consider by the different organizations working in the field. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Raj Sahab. Already your suggestions are very valuable, and regarding this kitchen, you are mentioning that kitchen water connecting to that in all sewer system over the time, this is going to happen. But in transition period, sometime we may be suggesting that we can take whether through interception or only grey water, other things that we are mentioning. That is only as an intermediate to immediately provide relief and see that whatever we can contribute. But in long term, these all things what you suggested rightly, it is going to come.
Thank you.
I have received a couple of points, Chaurasia ji, from some participants.
Yes.
One of the points they are saying is that in the interception and diversion STPs, there is there will be a challenge of operations and maintenance, which is there for STPs. So how do the small towns, if they come up with IND STPs, and they are left with meeting the O&M issue, so won't that be a challenge for them?
नहीं बिल्कुल, बहुत ही बढ़िया क्वेश्चन आपने रेज किया है। अभी गणपति जी ने बहुत अच्छा एक एग्जांपल दिखाए हैं और मैं खुद वो प्लांट देख करके आया हूं। यदि इवन थोड़ा सा हम स्क्रीनिंग कर दें, उसके आगे हम सेडिमेंटेशन का करके और ग्रिट रिमूवल का कर दें, तो दैट वाज वर्किंग वेरी परफेक्टली। 104 जो बीओडी था, दैट वाज रिड्यूसिंग टू इवन लेस देन 20। ये तो एक एग्जांपल है, लेकिन वहां तो इन लोगों ने काफी सिस्टमेटिक तरीके से चैनल वगैरह बना के किया था। एक मैं जो कराड़ में कापुर में देख के आया हूं, आई डोंट नो आई विल बी एबल टू क्विकली शेयर आर नॉट, एक मैं ऑडियंसेज के लिए जस्ट मैं एक बार आपको फोटो करूंगा, आप शेयर कर दीजिएगा रादर देन। वो बहुत ही सिंपल एक फ्लो करके ड्रेन आ रहा है एसटीपी के बगल में, उन्होंने एक पाइप के थ्रू उसको थोड़ा ब्लॉक किया है और पाइप में ओपनिंग भी है हाफ लेवल के बाद, वहां से सीधे पंप करके और उसमें लेके स्क्रीन चैम्बर में डाल रहे हैं। एब्सोल्युटली देयर इज नो इशू। उसमें उन्होंने सबमर्सिबल टाइप के पंप लगा रखे हैं, तो ये देखने में ऐसे लगता है, लेकिन जब वो उस सिस्टम के थ्रू लेकर के जाते हैं तो एब्सोल्युटली देयर इज नॉट ए प्रॉब्लम, दैट इज हैपनिंग।
सर मैं वो खर्चे की बात कर रहा था, फंडिंग एंड फाइनेंसिंग फॉर O&M। तो हम देखते हैं कि स्मॉल यूएलपीज के पास फंडिंग नहीं होता है टू पे फॉर ऑपरेशन मेंटेनेंस, सो वो इशू।
ओके, फंडिंग से रिलेटेड तो इसमें आई थिंक वी हैव टू सेंसिटाइज पीपल एंड somebody has to take leadership। अभी मैं एक एग्जांपल आपको करंट का जो मेंशन किया था, उन्होंने उस समय जब बनाया सिर्फ एक विजन आया कि हमारा जो प्रॉपर्टी टैक्स है उसमें हम 5% केवल डाल देंगे रिंग फेंस सैनिटेशन के लिए, एंड दैट इज वर्किंग परफेक्टली। तो ऐसा नहीं, और उन्होंने ऐसा नहीं है कि उनके वहां विरोध ऐसा नहीं हुआ। When they were approaching to their council, their people, lot of resistance was there, but they worked out that a common person, a poor person, which end up paying more, they unke साथ they compared that, let us say somebody is taking गुटखा, somebody is taking तंबाकू और पान, पर मंथ का उनका कितना हुआ, और जब ये ऐसे हम ट्रीट करते हैं उसके ऊपर पर कैपिटा कितना आ रहा है, दैट इज फार लेस कंपेयर टू दैट, एंड लाइक दैट एवरीबडी मतलब कम अराउंड टू सपोर्ट दैट। तो इसमें दो चीजें चाहिए, एक तो जो लोग भड़काने वाले हैं उनको साथ लेना होगा, और प्रॉपर तरीके से कैलकुलेशन के थ्रू उनके साथ हम इंटरेक्ट करेंगे, तो इसमें कोई भी इतना ज्यादा खर्चा नहीं है कि ना हो सके। मैं अभी जो कराड़ का बता रहा हूँ वहां पे, अरे मलकापुर का, हम यहाँ से 30 लाख 40 लाख रुपए पूरा पंप हाउस बनाना, उसका ये डाइवर्जन चैनल ये सब लेके कर रहे हैं। उन्होंने केवल 68,000 के अंदर में उसको एक बंड बना दिया है, पाइप डाल दिया है, एक समर्थ पंप लगा करके कर रहे हैं, और ऊपर से कुछ वो एंडम वगैरह मुश्किल से बोल रहे थे 2 लाख से कम हमारा खर्चा आया है। तो जैसे अब मैं विश्वनाथ जी का देख रहा था प्रेजेंटेशन, बहुत ही मतलब हम कह सकते हैं कि वंडरफुल प्रेजेंटेशन इन द सेंस कि जब तक हम एकदम फुल फ्लेज आइडियल में नहीं जाते हैं तब तक स्टेजेस में व्हाट एवर वी कैन डू लेट अस डू दैट। हम ये नहीं बोल रहे हैं कि ये जो IND सिस्टम है इट इज ए परफेक्ट, लेकिन allowing it to go untreated at least 50-60% we are able to do that, and let us do that. What we are doing, it is giving sensitization, it is preventing our water body to the extent possible, and over and above the most robust system is anyway house to house collection, conveyance, treatment, and then recycle, reuse. This is the system worldwide being followed from last 150 years, and in our city this is going to come. But keeping that long-term vision in the mind, how to reach, one day may it cannot be done, one go may it cannot be done. So planning should be like that, but in stages we can take up that how to go about to achieve that, and that way if you think there is no challenge, it is doable, and we have to, unless we give priority, nothing is doable. But once we give priority, this is doable. Priority will come only we educate them that how much you are losing, maybe in terms of manpower, or you may be the poor people more dying because of diarrhea and other. If you see in Karad and Malkapur, they are certifying not a single waterborne disease. Other people are losing much more compared to that. Once going to doctor 5,000 6,000 इससे कम कभी होता नहीं है। तो इन चीजों में हमको ये माइंडसेट हटाना है, ये बैरियर हटाना है, then I think more and more acceptability will come and people will demand to be in that मतलब fresh environment rather than used to living जो अभी है ना उस सिचुएशन को दूर करने के लिए। तो this is what I would like to urge all people.
Vishwanath, I have one question for you. What you have presented is stepwise in a way that जैसे चौरसिया जी ने भी रिपीट किया कि you can use the untreated septage or untreated sewage and also treated sewage to this transfer to the tank system. Now, for a country like India with a very different, biodiversity and locational aspects and So do you see both these options, that treat untreated sewage also you can use, and then treated sewage for filling up lakes and water bodies and transporting? Do you see these are good strategies? They need some kind of a national policy, or can they be actually expanded to the national level or only in certain parts of the country? Because you do have analysis.
Here's the challenge. Depinder, it's a very pertinent question. What I feel is that it requires a multidisciplinarity to deal with wastewater, right? We need agricultural knowledge, we need hydrogeological knowledge, we need lake knowledge and river knowledge, hydrological knowledge, and we need sanitation and civil engineering knowledge. So far, we've only thrown one set of knowledge at it. How do we bring multidisciplinarity to bear, and how do we then work out parameters for application based on a fit for purpose will be our challenge. And I think if we start to approach it from that lens, then all these possibilities become available to us. For now, we are locked into a standards-based approach, right? So we need a STP or an FSTP, which is good. That is the way the developed world is. But there will be a time gap, about 15, 20 years, before we are able to get all our networks to connect to our STPs and FSTP. In the meanwhile, what do we do with wastewater will require a bit of dexterity and a case-by-case approach. And I think I'm sure Mr. Chaurasia will also agree that our situations are so varied, from the Indo-Gangetic Basin to dry land to coastal areas, that each city and each town will have to devise its own solutions with help from experts.
So has Karnataka gone ahead? Is something developing in Karnataka on this, on the perspective?
So wastewater policy has been written by the state government, which recognizes now that three uses, the ecological environmental use, agricultural use, and industrial urban use. And it says that try and draw a balance between these three uses for every wastewater treatment plant or FSTP that we suggest. So that's the first step, but still there's a lot more work needed to be done.
Okay.
Sir,
and
few
what is
participants have raised their hands, so can I allow them to speak?
just one question to Ganpati, because they can also be responded by them from the.
Sure.
So Ganpati, from your experience of different lakes and the kind of Mahadevpura and others, there also is there standardization possible, because CPHEEO always talks of standardization. So for any lakes rejuvenation, is there a standardization possible with the treatment, system?
Yeah, I mean, I would say from a treatment system point of view, some degree of standardization is possible. I think, like we all discussed, we have to keep our operating cost under control or low. So based on the quantum of water flowing in the drains and its quality, so you can have a Q and Q kind of table, let's say. And if it's, let's say, low strength, low quantity also, then it can be one kind of system. If it is low strength, high quantity, it can be sort of another kind of system. Nature-based, more of using the lake, some part of the lake itself as a treatment system and so on. Similarly, the wastewater that's coming in the drain is of a higher strength, you could. So I can imagine that you can standardize by giving a kind of a matrix with different kind of technology choices in that. That's one kind of standardization in the treatment system, I would say. But I think what is badly needed, I also feel, is some form of ready reckoner or a compendium of sorts or a guidance document on the interception and diversion structures itself. What I've seen in many places is that the way the IND system is designed, oftentimes, and again, solid waste is a big challenge, as I mentioned, but it's not just solid waste, but hydraulics, and how do you really take care of what's a robust IND system? And again, for different kind of contexts, one can have 3 or 4 or 5 types of designs, with pictures and so on. So some degree of standardization possible there also. And I think we also need some standardization and regulation in terms of disposal standards into the water body. There again, small town, large water body, small water body. If the quantum of water you're putting in is less than 1% of water in the water body, you could have a different standard. If the quantum of water you're putting in is like 50% of the water in the water body, you should have a different standard, and so on. And the use of that water body, if it's recharging the ground, it could be a different standard. If it's being used for agriculture, it's a different standard. If somebody is using it for potable or for bathing or some such thing, it should be a different standard. So I think there is a need as well as scope for standardization across when you talk of interception, diversion, and water body rejuvenation, in my view.
Okay. The risk is that
Range.
the risk is that then people tend to go for DPRs and solutions based on 3-4 options. Anyway, I would like to. Okay, Jyoti, if there are any other.
Yes, sir. So there is Dr. Vanita Prasad. I'm allowing you to speak up. Yeah. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Thank you for attending my request. I'm really glad to be the part of the webinar, and I understood a lot of things. I'm a basic environment biotechnologist working in the field of anaerobic digestion improvement for past 30 years. My expertise is based into biogas as well as biohydrogen. So as startup, what I have started is I have created a consortia to treat the sewage. The mandate given to me was to treat sewage because, as we all are saying, only 30% is still treating, and we have to come up with a lot of things. So our has been awarded as a low-cost technology and has been shortlisted in Tech Park also, wherein we are mandated to do one trial at the Nala site.
And if you have any question, because we are ending.
Yeah. So that's where I wanted to ask. So startup like us can demonstrate for the fecal waste treatment and some treatments like this, because our technology, as Vishwanathan sir has told, has been awarded. That can be a very good solution. The treated water can be used by farmer, which has been a certification that there will not be any pathogen, there will not be anything, and there will be a recovery of bio which can be used by them. So for Smart Village, I am proposing these kind of technology, how we can collaborate with all of
you have shared the link. I think everybody can access that and get
back. And one thing I wanted to understand, Vishwanathan sir, when farmers are using this kind of water, spending their own money, how we are thinking to collaborate with these people, which is a very important aspect for us to understand. Can you guide me on that? How we can, they are spending their to just get that water for their irrigation.
So they're spending their own money, but there's no official institution which reaches out to them to help them understand better. What they need is, they need on-farm treatment systems which will improve the water quality. Small oxidation ponds, small wetlands, which will be able to polish the water and then be able to use it. I know of several farmers that we've worked with. We've done small wetlands, and then they've been able to use the treated wastewater after the wetlands through drip irrigation systems for rose cultivation, right? And all it needed was that wetland design as an idea for them, and they were happy to do it. So we'll have to figure out ways of engaging into conversations with them. But first, we'll have to recognize that these kind of users are there and that there's a need of engagement with them.
Correct. So that's a very important point, and I like to guide your seek your guidance for connecting to these kind of I will say early adopters for these kinds of technology. Because when we have to demonstrate on site. So these
is there anyone else
very good for us.
Yeah. So there is Uday Kelkar. Please speak to ask the question.
Namaskar, Ganpati. Namaskar, Chaurasia ji. And Vishwanath, namaskar. This is Uday Kelkar. I'm so happy that you have brought the point that you need to design as per the BOD loads, because we are designing higher treatment capacities which are going to waste the amount of money. And lastly, we don't have yet at this stage, we've been pushing for a lot of times, all of us together, that the end use goal needs to be looked at it, whether it's agriculture, whether it's rejuvenation, whether it's groundwater recharge, because everyone has a different ultimate situation. And I believe what I heard from CPHEEO in recent project, that we're going to start developing a particular manual, which is an extension of Chapter 7 of the CPHEEO document. So really happy and be part of this. Thank you for giving me opportunity to speak. And I know I almost work with every one of you. So we are heading in the same direction. So happy about it. Thank you so much. And let's keep working.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a point. The resort peoples have contacted me a lot of time. Solid waste and STP.
Let's give some
As-
other speakers.
Yeah,
also a chance. Have you raised your point? You've put your connections on the list.
Yeah. So, Uday Bagmare ji, would you like to ask a question? Hello, Uday Bagmare.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. Thank you, organizers, for giving me a chance to talk. Basically, I'm in this field since last 25 years. I was working with Oman government in the wastewater division. Right now, I'm in Pune. I'm a CEO of N1 Technology. We are in this field of sewage treatment and operation and maintenance. Chaurasia, sir, I would like to mention here that my native is Karad, Malkapur, what you mentioned. I'm born in Karad. So I'm much happy that
great here because of paucity I did not mention many things, but I am going to document not only in form of write-up but also in form of a documentary that will throw a lot of light. See, there may be many special cases that has to be dealt separately and they are few in number, but the major problem is that in majority of the towns what is feasible, let us do that. After that all special cases will come. This is what Karad has shown, and these are all things we are going to document, and thank you that you are from the Karad area. That's great.
Okay, sir. So any document from Karad region, I will be happy to share with you. I will support you to make this document, and it will be great for us that it will be on such a big platform. Karad will be in that platform.
So,
sir, this as Uday Kelkarji has, being a process guy, this BOD issue, what we are designing generally for 250 and all, is really we have to think of it, because generally we receive the BOD in India around 100 to 120 maximum. So design basis has to be reviewed. Second thing, right now everybody is behind the advanced technology and NDR and all, which because of that the cost of the things are going up. So we need to follow the conventional system which is operational friendly. And all these things has to be done. And Vishwanath sir, I would like to just add to your I really appreciate the presentation. The thing that the biggest challenge is the treated water through that system has to be avoided from the food chain. That is the challenge. I don't know how we are going to deal with this. But it's a great initiative that the farmer has taken. So because of the time limit, Dipender Singh ji, thank you for giving me a chance. And Chaurasia ji, I will be with your touch and will be in coordination with you for this Karad and whatever the balance.
Yes, thank you. एक चीज दीपेंद्र जी मैं थोड़ा सा अपने ऑडियंसेज को ये शेयर करना चाहूंगा कि जो भी रोबस्ट टेक्नोलॉजीज है शुरू में आई, जब उनको भी हम डिसिप्लिन के साथ मेंटेन करते तो हमारा 80% 85% खूब आराम से होता, लेकिन वहां पे हमारा इंस्टीट्यूशनल सेटअप नहीं था, अपैथी था, फॉलोअप नहीं था, और लेट अस से मेनी अदर मॉनिटरिंग थिंग्स वी आर मिसिंग. So because of our own weaknesses, we term technology as a not functioning, and all oxidation pond, all these USB, all these MBR, all these things we thought no, we have to go for higher one. Higher one, what is happening? It is designed one time grant is given, but when it comes for operation and skill, then even a city like Karad, I could come to know 30, they have MBR, 30 like they are paying. That is not the thing that each and every ULB can do that. Their level has gone up, that is a different thing. So what I want to emphasize that jo robust systems hai, start with that, and over the time wherever requirement arises or level of development always is a ever evolving process, there you can go. But in one go if you do and you don't have supporting things, then you will fall flat and unnecessary wastage of money will take place. So please be careful while investing money. Thank you.
चौरसिया जी, ये जो मॉडल सिटीज है यूरोप की, जिनको वाटर सेंसिटिव सिटीज कहते हैं, वहाँ एएसपी टेक्नोलॉजी के एसटीपीज अभी भी चल रहे हैं
जी.
उन्होंने क्या किया कि पुरानी टेक्नोलॉजी को हटा के नया नहीं लगाया, उसके आगे मॉड्यूल्स अटैच कर दिए हैं. इलेक्ट्रिफिकेशन मॉड्यूल है, स्लज निकाल के उससे बायोगैस बना रहे हैं.
जी जी.
एएसपी अभी भी चल रहा है हमारे यहाँ. जैसे आप कह रहे हो पुराना निकाल के नया लगा देते, फिर उसमें तो वही प्रॉब्लम आती है जो पुराने में आ रही थी।
हाँ बिल्कुल, जब हम नहीं ठीक होंगे तो कैसे कोई सिस्टम चलेगा। और एक चीज थोड़ा सा, ये बहुत बढ़िया आपने पॉइंट रेज किया है। देखिए जो भी ये टेक्नोलॉजीज डेवलप हुई हैं, ज्यादातर जो कोल्डर रीजन्स हैं उनमें चूंकि डाइजेशन बहुत फास्ट नहीं होता था, दैट वाज क्रिएटिंग अ लॉट ऑफ प्रॉब्लम, सो दोज पीपल डेवलप ऑल द थिंग्स एंड वी इन मोस्ट ऑफ द केसेज अडॉप्टेड एज इट इज। हमको ये जानना चाहिए कि हम एक वार्म सब ट्रॉपिकल रीजन में हैं, जहां एवरी 10 डिग्री मतलब टेम्परेचर बढ़ने पे डिग्रेडेशन रेट डबल हो जाता है। तो उनके जितना एफर्ट हमें डालने की जरूरत नहीं है कि एमबीबीआर में वो फ्लोटिंग मीडिया डाल रहे हैं, एसबीआर में लेकर एरेशन डाले जा रहे हैं, एमबीआर में उतने का जरूरत नहीं है। हमारा नेचर ने इतना पावर दिया है कि इवन ऑक्सीडेशन पॉन्ड और ये यूएसबी, इनमें भी टेम्परेचर की वजह से फास्टर डिग्रेडेशन होगा एंड वी कैन अचीव द सेम लेवल। इसीलिए मैं बार बार बोल रहा हूँ ईच स्टेट लेवल पे एक, जैसे यहाँ पे सीपीएचईओ है, हालांकि इट इज आल्सो वेरी मिगर स्ट्रेंथ, स्टेट्स में भी एक जरूर थिंक टैंक 4-5 ब्राइट इंजीनियर्स जो वहाँ पे हैं होना चाहिए एंड दे शुड नॉट बी प्लेस्ड एज ए पनिशमेंट पोस्टिंग की तुमको प्लानिंग में डाल दिया। दे शुड बी रिवॉर्ड एज कि वो स्टेट में सारे इंजीनियर से एक रिकॉग्नाइज्ड है। इससे देखिए कितना स्टेट पे फर्क पड़ेगा एंड थिंग्स विल इंप्रूव लाइक एनीथिंग। थैंक यू।
Sir, sorry to interrupt. We are running short of time. So, in the interest of time,
wanted to comment, Vishwanath, on this?
yeah.
No, so there's a difference between robustness and reliability, whereas the activated sludge plants and the extended aeration systems are very robust and reliable. There's also a quality perception of the treated wastewater. So if it is used in small towns and then the treated wastewater goes for agricultural application, it's absolutely the best system. The more oxidation ponds, they are the more robust systems and they do the job, as Mr. Chaurasia actually correctly pointed out. 80% of the work is done very easily by those systems.
Yes.
Very robust. Whereas if you're going for decentralized systems in high-end apartments, then you have to look for a high-end treatment like membrane bioreactors. So we have to make that right choice as to what is the end use and what's the perception of the user.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Team, I think the conveyance we need to think of it, because a lot of infiltration and the contamination is happening because of the conveyance. So lots of technology like vacuum sewerage and all, where we cannot have a proper, we cannot design the conveyance system in a complicated area. We can go for the vacuum sewerage and all. Those technology, if Chaurasia, if you are interested, I can share, because I have worked in Gulf for 7 years on this technology. And
we will like to end, Udayji, and because we can have a conversation later on. आप तो जानते ही हैं चौरसिया जी को, and Vishwanath and Ganpati are also there. From CSC side, I would request, I would thank Jyoti, Umra and Sumita who are here on the call, and I would leave it now to Jyoti to please conclude and
Yeah, so thank you everyone. Thank you to all the attendees as well as our amenity speakers, Chaurasia ji, Vishwanath sir, Ganpati sir, and DG NMCG for the keynote speaker. So we have many requests and questions, so we will come up with the answers post webinar, because in the interest of time we can't address all the queries here. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank each and everybody from speaker side and from attendee side. And on the behalf of CSC Water Program, I would like to conclude this webinar now. So thank you so much for joining us, sir. Looking forward to collaborate more with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks to CSC